Hey guys, I need to turn on my light. Oh, that one always makes me laugh. And yes, I am playing with my hair because I don't like how it looks on, so I'm going to pull it around because it's hot and heavy. Okay, if you know me, you know that I'm Suzanne Titchmeyer of No Longer Quit. I used to be of No Longer Quivering and Pathos blog for almost 10 years. Before that, I spent a year working on NLQ No Longer, before we joined Pathos. Well, okay, today let me warn you coming in. Our electricity's been going on and off for the last couple of hours. So if I lose electricity, you'll lose me, and I'll have to come back and do the rest of this at some later date. I've been taking notes for days on this. During my time at NLQ, I ran across a lady named Susanna Anderson's blog. It was called Are They All Yours, referring to the large number of children she had. And I don't know how long it took me to put two and two together to realize that Susanna was married to Stephen Anderson. Stephen, if you don't know it, he is the quote Pope of the new IFB, the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist. I have to talk about Steve first and give you all this inside information before we can talk about Johnathan Shelley or the other guy we want to talk about today, which is I'm having senior citizen moments. Let me look at my notes real quick. Aaron Thompson, because Aaron Thompson and Johnathan Shelley are in a world of hurt right now, a crazy world of hurt. So, long story short, let's talk about the IFB. Okay. Stephen Anderson started it. Anderson broke away from the IFB in 2005. He had attended Hyles Anderson College in Hammond, Indiana. I don't know if he ever graduated from that. I know he's got some kind of Bible study degree with some smaller Bible college. He married his wife, and they started out as independent fundamentalist Baptist. He decided he had had enough of their loosey-goosey, what he thought were liberal interpretations of everything. So he broke away in 2005 and started his own church, Faithful Word Baptist, which has been in Tempe and is now in Phoenix, which I'm guessing from everything I've read of the area, I've only driven through there once. Right smashed together, there's a lot of overlap. He started officially the new IFB, bringing churches and other pastors in 2017. That's when they filed all the paperwork to make this official religion, and they started adding all these different pastors. And they have had a pile of scandals since that time. In January 2019, Donnie Romero, who was the pastor of Stedfast Baptist in Dallas, confessed to having had affairs with prostitutes and smoking pot. Stephen Anderson showed up and defrocked him, and he placed, guess who? He placed Johnathan Shelley in place. Now, that didn't go well with everybody. Adam Fannin, who was the most senior pastor over at Faithful Word in Florida, had something of a fit, I think Jacksonville. He thought that he should be pastor. And he started exposing some of the things that had happened with the money at Steadfast Church that he was involved with. To this day, he claims the money was taken by Anderson and it was spent all kinds of ways. I don't know. I'm just telling you what was alleged. It is alleged. It's his opinion. Okay, so Adam Fannin broke off. He broke off, and he now has his own church in the Jacksonville area. He's not affiliated at all with the new IFB any longer. I understand he's had some developed theology since then too. He's made some changes. There's 30 churches in the new IFB that Anderson oversees. And in January 2021, First Works Baptist in El Monte, California was bombed. Now, First Works was run by Bruce Mejia. And that was the first time they've ever actually been attacked. The FBI has not figured out who did it yet. There are no suspects or clues, was my understanding. The article I read earlier today at the Los Angeles Times, where they'd written about this, talked about some of the things. Now, Mejia is an interesting dude. He is a former security guard. He doesn't have any training. He's not been through seminary, anything like that. He is called women who wear tights, quote, hoochie mamas. He called the city that he's in, El Monte, a ghetto. And he says that vaccines will make you unclean if you get a vaccine. He hates all holidays, apparently. He hates even Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead that the Mexicans celebrate, which would probably put him at odds with everybody where he is, because there are a lot of Hispanics in the area where his church is. And he continues to push Anderson's vilest kind of anti-gay rhetoric. There's a lot of that gets pushed. And he said a lot of really nasty, nasty things. He describes himself from the pulpit as homo-hating. Likes to say the same things that Anderson says. He likes to call everybody wicked reprobates and dykes and various things people he doesn't agree with. So there is that. 8 months ago, we had kind of a hard thing to face. Todd Ferguson of the Reason Files 2 was found in an alleyway with his head stoved in, with his head bashed in the very top. He had been criticizing the new IFB, and before it was even released to the papers or anyone that Todd was dead, members of the new IFB were posting about it. Now, since that time, the Columbus Police Department, the coroner has ruled that it was a natural causes, even though his head was bashed in. And there are a lot of people that say that came out of the new IFB. And I have to agree. I have to think that anybody that was mocking the death of somebody else before it was, publicly known that there was a death, got to be suspicious of that. But that's the IFB for you, the new IFB. Anderson's been banned from multiple countries because of his homophobia. His hatred towards gays is so intense that when the nightclub shooting happened at Pulse, he rejoiced and celebrated it. He hated Obama. When Obama came to his town in Phoenix, he said that he hoped that Obama got blown away. And lo and behold, one of his supporters that goes to his church showed up at an Obama event in their town, armed to the teeth. Secret Service caught him, and he had some explaining to do. I think that the new IFB has blood on their hands in so many ways, not just because they tried to bump off Obama. I believe that they have likely had something to do with the death of Todd Ferguson, which seems really suspicious at this point. They're listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group, and they've been flagged and watched by various government groups ever since. Stephen Anderson and his church have been banned from YouTube. Stephen's a Holocaust denier. He believes that only his flavor of Christians are God's chosen people, not the Jews. So he has the whole let's hate on everybody's Jewish thing going on too, that kind of almost makes me laugh that he has that. There was the craziest thing happened on Sunday, which made me go back and start talking about this, is Johnathan Shelley stood in the pulpit and called for the deaths of everyone opposing him. Right now, he is involved with Seth Bookout, Leslie Romero, Donnie Romero's wife, and Robert Starnes. Was that it? Was it Robert Starnes? Anyway, so what's happened is Shelley is alleged to have done an awful lot of bad things lately, including spending money on fast food and other things. There are all kinds of allegations about some of the things that he's done recently. I would recommend looking at the Reason Files run by Robert Tuttle. He has stayed on top of this. He has a lot more context than I do in that context. He is a Calvinist, but he's a very sweet guy I've seen, and he's not going to let them get away with anything. He also, I think, likely believes they were involved in the death of Todd Ferguson. So in 2014, Donnie Romero, this is before the hookers and the weed, he filed a nonprofit corporation in Texas. And this is also before that date listed as the date of the founding of the new IFB, which was 2017. It goes farther back than that. I don't know why that's listed as their official date. September the 14th, 2014, Donnie Romero filed nonprofit corporation in Texas. They put 3 directors on the board. One of them was Donnie, his wife Leslie, and was that Robert Starnes? Yeah, I'm sorry, Robert Starnes. I misspoke there a minute. Robert Starnes was originally on the board. Well, when Donnie had his troubles, he stepped down. Anderson came in, and he appointed Johnathan Shelley over the objections of a number of people, including, like I said, including Adam Fannin. And Adam made a couple good points about that as well. And Donnie was the original signed agent for the corporation. So when Donnie resigned in late 2019, early 2020, it removed him completely from the picture, including being the signed agent. And they ended up putting Johnathan Shelley as the signed agent at that point. But they didn't replace any of the board. Leslie is still on the board of directors. Robert Starnes was voted off. Since Donnie resigned, he was not holding a seat on the board. So everybody was voted out except for Leslie. Recently, Seth Bookout and Ryan Gallagher were added. They are 2 people that were fierce attendees of the NIFB that are now pretty much opposed to anything of Johnathan Shelley. And basically the board is trying to string Shelley up because under the actual rules of the incorporation, the 3 people on the board, Leslie, Bookout, and Gallagher, they're the ones that control all the decisions, how the money is spent, who's the pastor, all of that. And Johnathan Shelley has to listen to them and do what they say according to the own rules of incorporation. These 3 are the only legally entitled representatives to make any kind of decision about Stedfast Baptist Church of the Dallas area. Johnathan Shelley is an employee only, an employee at will, if I'm not mistaken, about Texas is a non-union state, and they can fire you and hire you at will. He doesn't sit on the board or anything. Okay, and when the authorized agent, when you had Donnie Romero resigning, the authorized agent became Kevin Edelman, and then it moved to Johnathan Shelley. But like I said, it does not work because the directors have the final legal say on everything. Now, Shelley's trying to say that they're illegally installed and he doesn't have to do anything that they are wanting to do at all. And that he's going to be there forever. He's saying, hey, Lisa, he is saying that only he is in charge. And like I said on Sunday, he called for their deaths. Every time I've seen a new IFB call for the deaths of somebody, either the person dies in some weird, suspicious way, or you see something weird go down. So for him to call for the deaths of these people directly during a sermon, if I were Leslie, I would be reporting that to the Dallas police right now. I would not be putting up with that. That is a direct threat. That is a direct threat on her and the rest of the board of directors. Now, Aaron Thompson is in his own kind of problems right now at Shore Foundation Baptist Church in Vancouver, Washington. He has been buying fast food, shopping at bong shops and other places with the money from the church. So it seems that both guys are really involved in this bad money thing. And it kind of makes me laugh because that was the thing that Adam Fannin has been saying since January 2019. He's saying that people in the church, but mostly Stephen Anderson, are illegally taking the money that is for the church and they're using it for all sorts of other things. And I would say there's probably a pretty good chance of that. I don't know if somebody could go in and do a forensic accounting. I think that does need to happen eventually and figure out where the money is going. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon because we know these guys sit on their little tin pot, crackpot thrones and try to control everybody. Now, if this is all not a hint that everything is rather C-word here, I don't know what is. You get these guys, they get a little bit of power and they run it all the way and they have crazy times with it. So there is that. Don't go to the IFB. I mean, the new IFB. IFB churches are by turns sometimes good and sometimes very bad. It just really depends upon the theology. And they have a little bit of difference from one to the other. Now, it's interesting to me also about Anderson has been banned from YouTube. He's not just been banned a little bit from YouTube. He has been ever since they banned him, uploading stuff over and over. And basically what happens is Anderson uploads videos and YouTube within a day or two discovers that it's Anderson and quashes him like a bug. It doesn't matter what kind of IP anonymizer he goes through. It doesn't matter what kind of email he goes through. They always figure out it's him and they squash him. Go YouTube. Now, if they would just squash a few more super toxic people, that would really be good. Are you hearing Team YouTube? You're always saying that, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you got to not. I'm thinking about everybody who's making money, and there are a lot of people on YouTube right now who are making huge amounts of money talking trash about the Gabby Petito thing. And that's really wrong. It's wrong that so many people have decided that the death of this young girl is an opportunity to make money. And I know you think I'm talking about Pestilence Adams, but I'm not. I'm talking about a number of people. If I started calling out people I know that are making all kinds of YouTube videos on the Petito thing, I'd be here all day. So I'm just going to say that kind of speculation, it just sucks. And it just makes it harder for everyone. While these guys with the new IFB, they run around. Hey, Christoph fan, they run around, they scuttle around like roaches. And just like roaches, when you shine the light on them, they don't like that much. They run for the darkness. So I'm a big believer in exposing these guys for everything they do. I have to say that every time I've talked about them in a video, especially during the time of Todd Ferguson, they would pile in here. Oh, thank you, Christoph Ann. He has been buying stuff from bong shops and fast food places with the church's money. That's what I was talking about. But every time you talk about these guys, you have a ton of people flood in from the new IFB, and they leave stupid threats. The biggest one that makes me laugh is they say they're going to show up and shave my head. And I always say, if you think you can get past the gate, the guard, the neighborhood guard, and you can get past the razor wire, come on, dudes. So I'm expecting to get some blowback for that. It is what it is. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I started looking at history. If you know me at all, you know I'm kind of a history buff. I like to look at these things, and I like to look at weird history. It just is what it is. Lisa, it is a big game of whack-a-mole. Every time I talk about these guys, whack-a-mole. And the thing, like I said, that they're scary about them is they've apparently threatened a lot of people. I believe they were somehow involved with Todd Ferguson's death. And they have a number of people that they've threatened and said they should die. And that's what's so scary to me right now about the Johnathan Shelley thing. He has called for the death of Leslie Romero, Seth Bookout, and Mr. Gallagher. He's called for their deaths. And knowing the new IFB, how it works, his followers are listening and eventually will take some kind of action. I don't know if they'll actually do it for Shelley, but I think that this would be a good time for Mr. Bookout, Mr. Gallagher, and for Leslie to start taking some protection, because I wouldn't doubt at all that that was the call of the weird. And I would hate to see anything happen to any of them. Yeah, so there is that. I did want to start talking about history. I wanted to say a little bit. Right now, I am working on a piece that I intend to do about the Jack's Brewery on Decatur Street in New Orleans. One of the things that I've noticed lately is with the historians, the internet historians on YouTube, some of them are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are ugly. There was one that I follow that a couple of weeks ago, they posted up some videos they'd done of St. Louis 1 and St. Louis 2 cemeteries in New Orleans. Now, I have relatives buried in both of those. I spent every All Saints Day with my father going to both places and cleaning up family tombs, plus a couple other graveyards or where my large Cajun family is buried. And this person, though I like sometimes their historical pieces, they were upset. They were upset that they weren't allowed in St. Louis 1 or 2. They weren't allowed. It was locked. And the only way they could get in was to go in as part of a group. Or if they're going in with the archdiocese for a funeral, or maybe they're going in to visit family. This person was red hot, and he went and got his drone out and flew his drone into St. Louis 1. I didn't have the stomach or the heart to watch the St. Louis 2 one. And he could not understand that it's locked because there's been so much violence there. There's been a whole lot of people that have robbed others there. It turned into a bad situation. They would go in there and they would cut all the monuments off, and they would turn around and sell them in the antique stores of New Orleans and everywhere north. So it turned into a real problem with St. Louis 1 and St. Louis 2. And I just about cried when I saw his video, because here he is focusing on the video on the monument that Nicolas Cage has put up in St. Louis 1, which looks completely ridiculous and out of place. It's a giant modern pyramid in this ancient cemetery. And so this historian focused just on Nicolas Cage's tomb and Marie Laveau's. His information about Marie Laveau was all kinds of wrong. It was something that he had picked up out of a book. And I, for the life of me, like I said, I started almost crying because I started seeing family gravestones where someone had come along and clipped the large angel off of it and sold. And I think I'm going to have to write him an email and say, look, there's a reason why people aren't allowed in there, because of the destruction of the monuments, because there are people coming up from the Desire Street homes that are robbing others in the graveyard. There have been some really bad incidents that I've heard of through the years. And while I know it's probably funonito, you're thinking that you're going to go in there and pose in the crypt that they posed in for Easy Rider. He was complaining about that. He wanted to pose himself there. These graveyards mean more than that to the people of New Orleans. That's where our ancestors are buried. That's why such a push is now taken on to preserve them. There are good reasons to preserve those graveyards. Yes, he did buy the Lalaurie home, which kind of upset me too, because um, I'm almost thinking they should have turned that into some sort of museum at this point. I don't know if you guys know who Madame Lalaurie was. She was famous in New Orleans after her death because she had tortured her slaves. I mean, horrible torture. It was the most horrible story that went around. Yeah, that's the house that Nicolas Cage decides to buy. I guess it takes all kinds of people in this world. I guess. And I would guess that he's been hanging around quite a bit at the Voodoo Museum as well. So anyway, it boggles my mind when people who don't know the history go in there and start buying stuff up and or saying, hey, this is historical because of X. We'll say, well, guess what? It's also historical because of A, B, C, W, Q, all these different things. There are all these different reasons why these places are historical at this point. So I've been doing a lot of research on the Jack's Brewery. My grandfather worked at the Jack's Brewery. It was built in 1891. It was one of the oldest large breweries throughout the U.S. that was successful and made it through Prohibition, even though I'm doing some digging now to find out how they made it through Prohibition. I know how the Jack's Brewery in Jacksonville, Florida did it. They did it by bottling root beer and cream soda, I think it was, for one of the bigger brands. So I'm kind of curious. I'm doing a lot of digging. I'll come up with that. My grandfather worked there for years and years. He had some crazy tales he told me. And I'm actually surprised there's not as much history besides, built this date, survived that, available out there on the Jack's Brewery. So that's what I'm involved in now. My asthma finally lifted, and hallelujah, I am looking at the Jack's Brewery. He's not, in my humble opinion, wrapped too tight. I agree. He married Elvis's daughter. And I know the history there is astounding. So I'm going to demystify a few of those places, I think, if I can. The Jack's Brewery right now, the whole building there on Decatur Street has been turned into a giant mall. There are restaurants, there are stores, and there are apartments in the building. I'm kind of jealous because living in an apartment in an old brewery sounds baller to me. But here's the thing I've been really curious about. I've been wanting to know if there's any kind of paranormal activity there. I know that sounds crazy, but how can you have a place that's that old where I know people were killed? My grandfather had some crazy stories of that too. He was a boilermaker there for many, many years. So I'm going to be putting all that together, I think, and doing a historical one. Yeah, there has to be, Christoph, Ann, because it's been around so long, with machinery and men, and before OSHA came along, damn good and well there were a ton of accidents there. There just had to be. And I just love looking up the history of these old places and going through it. And then, yeah, not. So there's that. And that's where I am now. I'm changing my channel a little bit. I don't know when I'm going to be posting. I'm going to eventually come up with a schedule. But right now, we're kind of catch as catch can. Like I said, I had a friend that's been having some terrible back problems. We've been hauling her hither and yon, even though the other night I kind of put my foot down and told my husband, is like, no, you're not getting up at 2 a.m. to drive her to the ER. Tell her to call an ambulance. So there is that. And so hopefully our life is going to get a little easier here because we're on the cusp of dry season. All of our friends we've been storing crab for are back, including the guy where we had his old car for over 18 months. So there's that. That won't be as much expense for us, thank God. We have over $1,000 in somebody else's car. Can you believe that? And can't get reimbursed. Oh yeah, there are a ton, Lisa. There are a ton of ghost and paranormal activity. I sent Carolyn Ironwheel a message yesterday because I had a weird experience for 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was. We went to a friend of my husband's house to stay for a couple of days, and they had just bought this new house, this old new house. It was new to them. And they had the place completely remodeled on the inside. They were doing it themselves. It looked lovely. But on the second day, I was washing my hair in the bathroom sink. I pulled up like this, and behind me in the mirror was the former owner. So the former owner was still there in, ghostly form, and she was red hot about the renovations they'd done. She was mad. I had never encountered such a mad, angry spirit before. And I did what I could, tried to send her along, used a little olive oil and salt and sage in the house. I saged as much of the house, trying to run this lady off, and told her that she had to depart. She'd given me a name, so what I always do when I have these encounters is I stop and look up who they claim they are and see if I can find a history on them. And sure enough, she did own the house by that name. She was in there. So I told our family friends, I said, yeah, you have a spirit here. You have the spirit of the former owner. You should probably get your priest to come bless the house. If you could find an Indian shaman to come sage the house again and rush her along, that would probably be good. Because some of these things take some time and intention to get rid of. And they told me I was crazy. Well, I may be crazy, but I know what I know. And that lady was there. And here we are 5 years later. I've ever seen. I had no idea they had that kind of problems. So I have to ask myself, if you have an angry spirit in your home, do you think that anger could infect the people in the home and drive a situation in a horrible way? I'm starting to think about that a lot and starting to do a little bit of research on that too. A friend did a tour and he was very scared just standing across from the Laurie house. Yeah, it's just terror. I get that when I stand outside of it too. I don't go anywhere near it. There are places in New Orleans I will not go. I just will not go and there are other places in this world. One of the big ones for me is Galveston Beach, and I didn't even know why for many years. Well, now I know why, because there was a horrible hurricane there that killed thousands of people. So every time I would go to Galveston, I would see dead people. It's interesting here in Costa Rica. I don't see dead people anymore. I don't see anybody. The only paranormal experience I've had here is I had a friend that passed that appeared to me that asked me to pass on a message for everybody else in his life. But other than that, it's been dead quiet. And the only reason I can think of is here in Costa Rica, people live a lot simpler lives. They usually don't have unfinished business. Whereas us in the Western world, we always have tons of unfinished business. There are always petty feuds and rivalries and things that drive us into doing all kinds of crap. Christoph, yeah, I'm trying to possibly do that because that's the other thing. But when you start exposing that you have seen the dead, people tend to say you are absolutely nuts. Here's where that got funny for me as being part of a Quiverful church. My ex-pastor saw that I had this ability sometimes to see the dead and to know things I wasn't supposed to know. And he, of course, tried to exploit it, called it discernment, and had me come up and pray for people for discernment about whatever they were going through. And sometimes I get a word of knowledge, sometimes not. But I look at that, and we're having an interesting discussion on Facebook with some people I don't know very well about what's forbidden in the Bible, what's allowed and what's forbidden as far as witchcraft, the supernatural, all of that. Dating a medical student. Hey, nice to see this. Yeah. These guys, they are like, they are really bad. What's the tea? There's not really much tea. I talked about, if you back up, I talked about Aaron Thompson and his buying stuff at bong shops and and fast food joints. And Johnathan Shelley has pretty much called out a death threat to Seth Bookout, to Mr. Ryan Gallagher, and to Leslie Romero. He has called for their deaths. He did this from the pulpit. He did it from the pulpit. I can't believe that. To me, that's the most outrageous thing of all times, that he did that. And so now I'm talking about the paranormal just a little bit, just a little weird bit. So back with the paranormal. So ever since I was 3 years old, I've been able to see dead people. I don't want to. It's never comfortable. Many times when I see somebody who's passed on, they want something resolved on earth, either like the lady Elaine, who wanted my friends to stop remodeling her house, or my friend that passed on and wanted me to let everybody know that he didn't hate them. He actually loved them. He just didn't know how to get home again. He didn't know how to bridge that gap. I saw somebody at their own funeral one time who wanted me to tell everybody he hadn't committed suicide, because the family was very secretive about cause of death. And all this guy's friends were speculating that it was suicide. So he showed up. He was pretty mad. He wanted everybody to know it was not suicide. So I made sure I told everybody it was not suicide. This guy had a heart attack in the middle of the night. Exactly. They do crazy stuff. Stupid is forever. You were right. Well, Christoph fan, this is something I haven't talked about much. I've had to get more comfortable with talking about it. Like I said, I even started talking about UFOs recently, and I may have another UFO one because I got cut off too because of the electricity here. And that was a weird week. I saw a UFO that week, and I've seen them a couple times in my life, but I've not seen one here, and that's clearly what it was. And I asked several people who were there with me, I said, "Do you see that?" And they were all like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." So I'm not sure that everybody has the ability to see these things. Now, like I said, whenever I have a paranormal experience, I stop and try to do some research. That's why I've always loved the dead files, because you have a lady who comes in and sees dead people to a level that I've never been able to reach. And you have the former New York City homicide detective who comes in and does the research side of it. So I think when you do those things, you have to research who it is you're talking to, because that's the other thing I want to see, going back to the Gabby Petito case. And I agree with Carolyn Ironwell on this. These people who are trying to get in contact with Gabby, they could be opening a portal to something that they really don't want to be fooling with. Because as well as there are good spirits and benign spirits, there are evil spirits out there too. And if you tap into that, God help you, because there are things out there looking to possess you and will lie to you. So there's that too. That's another reason why I always make sure that I write it down and I double check it all the time. I got to. So anyway, I'm going to go. I'm getting kind of wheezy. I'm going to do a paranormal, I think, talk here soon. I just need to sit down and organize my thoughts and write them down, because if I don't, I'm just a mess, railing all over the place. Oh, Rena, I'm getting ready to go. Catch me on the replay. So you guys all have a great day. Replay crew, love you guys. Love all of y'all. Have a great day. My stalker, you know what I think. I pray for you, my stalker. I pray for you every single day.